Hello and welcome. I'm Micah, the cosplayer seamstress. Today we're going to be finishing the hood for the Little Red Riding Hood costume. But before that, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Here's the cloak as it was when I finished last week. I have the front and back all completed. I'll be making the hood and belt today as well as finishing all the rough edges. Step 9 reads, with right sides together and raw edges even, fold hood 6 along center back fold. Stitch top edges together. To gather hood between notches and other small dots on lower edge, stitch along seam line and 1/4 inch 6 mm inside seam line using a long machine stitch. Fold top corner at small dots, bringing top seam to center back fold. Stitch. Here is the illustration for this step. The first part of this step is very simple. I will fold the hood along the center with the right sides together. Then I will stitch across the top edge. Then I will stitch 2 lines at the seam line and on a 1/4 inch, creating gather lines. I will be using the same stitch I used for base stitching. Then I will fold the top corner at the dots and stitch this in place. Step 10 reads, pull up gathering stitches to fit neck measurement of cape between notches and outer small dots. Wrap the thread ends around the pins in a figure 8 at each end. Distribute gathers evenly, then machine baste along seam line to secure gathers in place. Here's the illustration for this step. This step is really fun but also difficult. I'll be gathering the edges using the strands I made in the previous step. I will gather until the measurements of the hood matches the cape measurements. Then I will pin the gathers in place by looping the thread ends in a figure 8 around the pins. Then I will machine baste this in place. Step 11 reads, with right sides together, stitch hood facing 7 to front edge of hem, trim seam. Here's the illustration for this step. This is a very basic step. I will be putting the fur lining on the hood. Then, when that is done, I will trim the seam so that it is not clunky. Then I tried to follow the directions for step 12, but through a combination of my sewing machine needle breaking and not liking the way the hood looked with the directions, I decided to do my own thing, which you are allowed to do if you do not like the directions. So I ripped out all of the sewing I had done on step 12 and hand sewed the fur in place, only folding down 1/3 of the way towards the inside instead of all of the way. Here's what it looked like when I was done. Step 13 reads, with right sides together, pin hood to neck edge of cape, placing inner small dots at shoulder seams and finished edges 5/8 inches 1.5 centimeters in front from edge of cape, matching center back and remaining small dots as shown. Baste neck edge. Here is the illustration for this step. Basically, I will be pinning the hood to the cloak with right sides facing each other. I'll be pinning the hood 5/8 inches away from the raw edges, matching the centers and the dots. Then I will base stitch this in place. Now I'll be skipping to step 20 as I am not making designs B, C, or D. Step 20 reads, mark length of cape, press up hem along marking, mark depth of hem, trim evenly. To form narrow hem, tuck under raw edge to meet crease, press, stitch hem in place. Here is the illustration for this step. The first thing I'm going to be doing is marking the length of the hem. I did this off camera. Then I will press the hem up to that marking with a hot iron. Then I am marking the depth of my hem, which is 5/8 inches, and trimming the hem to that point. folding the raw edge to meet the pressed edge, I will then sew close to the edge, creating a hem. Now I'll be doing my own thing separate from the steps. First, I did not like the way the hood was resting on the cloak part, so I hand sewed the rest of the hood to the cloak. Then, I also did not like the way the inside of the fur was showing when I put it on, so I hand sewed the corners in so that the fur was on the inside as well. After that, I needed to finish the edges since I did not have the fur to go all the way down. For this, I simply did an overlock stitch to finish those edges. Now I will be going back to the pattern. Step 23 reads, Belt A. Stitch notch edges of belt 10 in a 3/8 inch 1 cm seam. Fold belt in half lengthwise with right sides together. Stitch raw edges, leaving an opening to turn. Trim corners. Here is the illustration for this step. I will be sewing the two pieces together at the notched edges in a 3/8 seam allowance. Then I will fold the belt in half with the right sides facing each other. Then I will sew this together, leaving a gap in the middle where I can turn this later. Then I will trim the corners. Step 24 reads, Turn belt, press. Slip stitch opening edges together. Top stitch close to finished edges. Here's the illustration for this step. The first part is very easy. I'll be turning the belt out so that the right sides are facing out. Then I will press this with a hot iron. After that, I will slip stitch the opening close. A slip stitch is also known as a ladder stitch. The point is that it is not seen. To do the stitch, I will be sewing along the fold that I made with the seam, and only catching those pieces so that the stitch will not be seen on the outside. This type of stitch has to be done by hand. Then I will top stitch this with the machine, making it look polished and complete. Step 25 reads, using a washable pen or pencil, make a small dot for buckle prong 1 1/4 inch, 3.2 centimeters in, from one end, centering eyelet between long finished edges. Make eyelet at marking. Insert buckle prong through hole, turning back end. Stitch close to finish edge. Here is the illustration for this step. First, I will be marking where the eyelet needs to be placed. This is 1 1/4 inches from the edge. Then I will create an eyelet. To do this, I will create a small hole in the belt at the dot. Then hand stitching, I will sew a small circle around the hole. Then working left to right, I will whip stitch, creating this flower-like stitch. Then I will put the buckle in place, folding the fabric over. After that, I will stitch the edges in place, sewing as close as I can to the raw edge. Step 26 reads, try on cape and insert belt in and out of the belt openings as shown on envelope, keeping the back of the cape free. Mark small dot in belt for the belt prong to go through. Make eyelet at marking. Make additional eyelets as desired. Here's the illustration for this step. For this, I put the cloak on and marked the belt where I wanted the prong to go on the other side. I did this off camera. Then I repeated the step of making an eyelet from the previous step. Congratulations, you now have a cloak. Here's what the cloak looks like on me without the rest of the costume. Here's what the cloak looks like with the bodysuit and the skirt. If you would like to see how I made the bodysuit, skirt, or the first part of the cloak, check out the playlist on my channel. If you would like to see how I will find and make the shoes, basket, and hair ribbons, check out my video next week.
Now that you have finished the cloak, you are ready for the accessories. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you on the next project!